Welcome to Just the Worst AMA podcast, episode number 6 to be perfectly precise. I'm your host, Billy Donnelly, who you can find at JoeBlow.com. This is Infamous, and right here at Just the Worst podcast. And well, as the show's title dictates, this is the AMA podcast, AMA internet speak for Ask Me Anything. So you send in your questions, whatever it is you want to ask, I'll give you my answers, however it is I choose to answer them, usually as truthfully and as opinionatedly as possible. Opinionedly, not quite sure that's a word, but as of now, it is. So Webster's, get on making that happen. So we'll let you know a little bit later in the show how it is that you can send new questions in on a regular basis. But without further ado, let's get right into the action. Got 3 questions lined up on tap for this particular week, and I'm going to get through them. Well, pretty efficiently, I think, as best we possibly can. So we're going to start right off. This one comes in from Robin Crimson Trainweight. I believe I got that right. Robin Crimson Trainweight, who just wanted to know, have you ever seen a Swiss film? No. I don't believe so. I think I've seen films that move through Switzerland, but I don't know that I've seen a particular film made by the Swiss. Those in and of Switzerland. So, yeah, there's no real other way to spin this or put a lot of jazz or dazzle behind it. Have I ever seen a Swiss film? I don't believe so. I tried to actually do some quick research and pull up some well-known Swiss films. Nope, none of them. None of them have come before my eyes. So, so yeah, Robin, I hope that answers your question. Thanks for submitting. Sorry I didn't have anything much more for you. So, yeah, that's just kind of the way it goes. All right, got another question coming in from Leonard Hamilton. I wonder if that's the basketball coach. Even if not, I'm going to assume that it is. So, so thank you, Coach Hamilton, for your question. And this question is, who should play Cable in the next Deadpool movie, and will we ever see Hugh Jackman with Ryan Reynolds in one? All right, here we go. Spoiler alert. For anybody who may not have seen Deadpool or who forgot to stay all the way through the film through the end credits, all the way to the other end for a post-credits stinger at the end of the new Deadpool film. In that moment, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool relays and confirms that the character of Cable will be making an appearance in the Deadpool sequel, which of course set off an enormous bit of fan casting by all fans, because that's what fan casting is involved, to try and figure out who they think would be best served to play Cable for Deadpool 2, or whatever it is they're going to call it, as part of Fox's version of their Marvel universe, which just really revolves around the X-Men, other mutants. They'd like Fantastic Four to be in there, but I don't know that that's going to happen. And Deadpool. So I've seen a ton of speculation and wish listing as far as who would play Cable. And look, there are 3 different names, I think, that have been tossed about that are sort of interesting in a number of ways. Now, the first would be Stephen Lang. Now, Stephen Lang, who you may recognize from the Avatar film, he is somebody that Rob Liefeld, the creator of Deadpool, really had wanted at some point in the past. Now, we're talking many, many years ago, before Deadpool was ever really close to being a thing. And Stephen Lang is getting a little bit older in age, but he's the dude's in still fantastic shape. So he may be able to do it. It's all going to be a matter of how young 20th Century Fox might want to move with the character. as they tried to make Deadpool into really its own franchise that they can continue to work and maybe use that as sort of a weaving connective tissue to creating a larger X-Men slash Fox Marvel universe on their end. So with that said, Rob Liefeld has also brought up somebody else most recently after the Golden Globes as a possibility to play Deadpool. Not to play Deadpool, sorry, to play Cable in the Deadpool sequel, and that would be Jon Hamm. Now, when you think about who would play Cable, Jon Hamm never really enters into your discussion. Jon Hamm never really ends up in your consciousness. He's never really anyone that sits in your mind and says, that would be the guy that I would anticipate in one of those films. Now, look, Jon Hamm's name has been sort of bandied around in a number of different superhero fan castings. At one point in time, people wanted him to potentially be involved with Superman. At one point in time, there was talk, and I still believe legitimately, according to my sources, that he was a very considered talent for Doctor Strange very early on in the process. Is Jon Hamm right for Cable? I don't know. I mean, that's really a hard one to sort of reconcile because of the fact that he's not really the typical actor you would imagine for that. Because when you look at Cable, a lot of what people gravitate towards first is do they look alike? That's always one of the first things that people want to grab hold of. Is do they have a physical resemblance to the character? And if not, then right away they want to chuck it out. And Jon Hamm doesn't really ooze Cable for a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean that they can't make it work. Now look, Rob Liefeld created Deadpool, and I think as a result has a pretty good feel for who would be able to pull off some of these characters. Now, does that mean he's on the list? I think Jon Hamm would be a pretty attractive option for 20th Century Fox. He has some name value that 20th Century Fox could cash in on, and he's also somebody that you could feel trusting in when it comes to moving franchise pieces forward and getting a lot of that emotion to sort of build on. So, could I see Jon Hamm as the guy? Sure, he's a little bit of a riskier pick, but I also think he's a little bit of a glossier pick for the mainstream. And, if you heard that Jon Hamm was involved in a motion picture, you would be a little bit more excited about it than if you heard Stephen Lang. Now, once again, that's not a knock on Stephen Lang. It's just one of the pros, one of the benefits of having Jon Hamm be a part of your motion picture. So in that event, if you can have Jon Hamm involved, I think that's always a pretty solid addition to whatever it is that you're doing. Now, the other name that I think would be interesting, and here's where you talk about physical resemblance, and this is one that I've actually seen fans pretty excited about, surprisingly, when it was put out there, and that is the idea of Kevin Nash, former WWE superstar, WWE Hall of Famer, Kevin Nash, who most recently is probably best known as being one of the members in the dancing crew that's at the center of the Magic Mike films, Magic Mike and Magic Mike XXL. Kevin Nash is a big dude, about 7 foot tall, and while he's still carries, I think, some of the skepticism that wrestlers turned actors carry with them. He has been involved in quite a few things that have started to chip away at some of that, where now there are people who only know Kevin Nash for acting in feature films and not necessarily for him being involved with professional wrestling / sports entertainment. He does certainly have the look, and that goes a long way with fans who want almost page-to-screen absolute translation. They want it to be flawlessly done. And in that respect, he brings that to the table. Whether or not Kevin Nash can carry a whole film, or not necessarily carry it, but be as integral as Cable as he's never been before in the past, who knows? I think if you find the right talent, if you find the right match, you can really make anything come together. And I think when it comes to Kevin Nash, you would have to look at somebody like Dave Bautista, who many people wouldn't have imagined would have risen to such a height so quickly as a Hollywood actor, having come from professional wrestling. Now, he worked very hard in order to get to that point, and he got a tremendous opportunity with Guardians of the Galaxy that then also led to Spectre, and will probably lead to many, many more things as he continues to try and get a feel for acting. But let's not forget, too long ago, that it was The Rock who was very raw coming to Hollywood from his time in the ring. And The Rock is right now easily one of the biggest stars in all of Hollywood. So could Kevin Nash make that transition as well? He's a little bit further along in age, but that doesn't mean if he doesn't devote himself to it or throw himself into it, that he couldn't be the guy. And I've seen a lot of fans get really excited over the idea of Kevin Nash being Cable. And for that reason, I would include him into the list. So I think those are three fairly reasonable casting ideas for who could play Cable in the next Deadpool movie. John Hamm, Stephen Lang, and Kevin Nash. I think that's a pretty interesting trifecta to look at. That doesn't mean that that's going to be the only three people that 20th Century Fox and whoever is at that point directing the Deadpool sequel, I would imagine, given how successful the first Deadpool movie was, that they would once again bring Tim Miller back for the sequel, because he just seems to get it and put some love and passion in it and was able to crack a character that nobody over there was able to do, if you remember going all the way back to X-Men Origins Wolverine. So I think they're going to have a pretty exhaustive search for the right character. We do know that Cable will be a part of Deadpool 2. I believe that the search is probably already underway to sort of start kicking up some rocks and see what might be underneath and if they can find the right guy to play Cable. But I think those are three good places to at least start and see how it might come together as the Deadpool sequel really starts to take shape. And you know the 20th Century Fox is already ready to go with trying to get another one moving as quickly as they possibly can, given that I think they were genuinely surprised with how well the first Deadpool film managed to do among the fan base as well as among mainstream audiences. So as for the second part of your question, will we ever see Hugh Jackman with Ryan Reynolds in a Deadpool movie? I mean, look, you kind of did in Deadpool. I mean, look, it wasn't actually Hugh Jackman. You got Hugh Jackman's face as Wolverine with Ryan Reynolds in the Deadpool movie. But beyond that, I don't know that it's going to happen. You know, you got to remember, we're looking at Wolverine probably in some way being involved with X-Men Apocalypse. I don't know how exactly he will be involved in that film, but it wouldn't surprise me if he gets to pop up there in some respects. And then beyond that, what we're looking at is a third solo Wolverine film, which is said to be Hugh Jackman's last time suiting up as Wolverine. So with that said, I don't know that you're going to be in a position to have Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds cross paths in this universe, because I don't know that Deadpool is going to be moving over into the X-Men side of things too much further than where he is right now, which is sort of on his Deadpool path. Now, will we get crossover down the line? It's possible. We got some crossover here with Deadpool being able to cross paths with Colossus and Mega Sonic Teenage Warhead in the Deadpool film. But beyond that, I don't know that we're going to get a full-blown Deadpool X-Men crossover until they're able to make this thing come together a little bit more tightly with a strategy to make it happen and sort of expand that world. I think had the Fantastic Four film done well for them, I think it's something that we could be having a legitimate discussion about right now. But because it didn't, I think right now Fox wants to make sure they have all their ducks in a row. Their biggest duck that they have going for them is the X-Men universe. I don't know that they want to start infringing upon that yet unless they have everything in place to make it work. And for that, I think Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are never going to get a chance to cross paths in sort of the overall X-Men universe, simply because of the fact that Hugh Jackman's time is coming to an end, and once he is done with that, I think that's it. That's it for him, and he's not going to be moving on. He's not going to be coming back. He's going to hang it up. He's going to go on and do other things, and that'll be the end of it. And maybe somebody else will take up the Wolverine mantle. It's very possible they may just recast and keep moving forward rather than rebooting. And for that, you may see somebody else as Wolverine get the cross pass with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. But I do not think it will be Hugh Jackman. It's not going to be an X-Men Origin. It's not going to be an X-Men Apocalypse. It's not going to be in the third Wolverine film. And whatever it is that X-Men are planning to do afterwards, it is not going to be part of that either. So, unfortunately, it looks like they're going to just maintain their own separate paths, and that'll just be one of those what-if moments that you'll have to ponder for the rest of your life. So, Coach Hamilton, thanks for the question. I hope that sort of shook everything out for you. And, yeah, that's all I got to say on that one. All right, we got one final question to dip into here as part of this week's show. And this one comes in from Stefan DeSolo, who asks, if you could be given any piece of movie memorabilia, what would it be and why? Here's the caveat. It cannot be resold in this situation to avoid picking whatever the most expensive thing you could think of is. Okay, so it has to just be any piece of movie memorabilia that I would like to have. Whew. I gotta think about this one. I think there's actually two. Well, number one, maybe a Kong bomb, but that's out of spite. Beyond that, what I would say is I think there's two things that I would most be interested about. And this kind of goes back to being a kid and in the films that influenced where I was as a movie lover growing up. Number one would be from Raiders of the Lost Ark, from Indiana Jones, the very first Indiana Jones. And I think you have to go to right just to the very, 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 very beginning, with the Aztec golden idol of fertility, the golden statue that Indiana Jones tries to recover in the opening sequence of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where, you know, then he's chased by the boulder and everything after that. I think that, because I'd put it just right on my desk and just sit here and just look at me. That creepy face would just sit here and look at me all day, and I'd love every moment of it. But I think that particular idol, you know, really set the tone for the Indiana Jones that we know and love. You look at the 3 films, we'll pretend that Crystal Skull doesn't exist, but the 3 films that we have on record, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade, all of that was really kick-started by that opening sequence of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, the rest of Raiders is a fantastic film, all-time classic. And if I could have the Ark of the Covenant somewhere in my house, I think it'd be great. I think it takes up a little bit too much room now. But as far as the Golden Idol of Fertility, I just think that is a cool piece. It's recognized. Not everyone knows it, I don't think, specifically. Like, if you were to see it, unless you knew, I don't. You might just think, oh, what is that thing? But if you were a true fan, you recognize where that came from, and it immediately gets you into the thought process of recalling how much you love Indiana Jones, how much you love Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then that just gets the ball rolling with just fandom and passion. So yeah, so one piece of movie memorabilia, if I could have, would be the authentic, original film-used Aztec Golden Idol of Fertility from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the other one that I would think of, just because I've always thought it was amazing, and there's replicas that are out there. They cost a few $100s. They would be cool to have as well. But I think if you could have, once again, the screen-used, legitimate version of it, it would be just amazing. And that would be from The Empire Strikes Back, a Han Solo frozen in carbonite. Now, I don't mean that I actually want to take Harrison Ford and freeze him in this non-existent type of freeze-dry packaging, but the final version, the version that gets to sit up on Jabba the Hutt's palace wall, that is what I would love to have, is the screen-used version of Han Solo frozen in carbonite. I think Han Solo frozen in carbonite is, once again, one of those just iconic images that exist in all of cinema. I think it is one of those images that, as a Star Wars fan, we just embrace and love, even though that moment is together with just a pain and suffering and sadness. But it's still just a cool piece of movie history that I think if I could have that, and I have a lot of art on my walls, especially around my house, and in my office, a lot of like geek-centric art for the different properties that I love. I also have a D-Tech carbonite that is me frozen in carbonite. So it is the Han Solo's body frozen in carbonite with my face as a part of it, and that comes in like a statuesque form, and that's actually on my wall above my desk. So if I had a piece to go with it where I am frozen in carbonite right next to the actual Han Solo frozen in carbonite, the life-size version. In my version, it's only like it's like 8-9 inches. I'm talking like a huge, like 6-7 foot Han Solo frozen in carbonite that I could just put on the wall. When people came over, they were like, "Holy shit!" And I'm like, "Yep, that's right. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite in my house. Suck on that." I think that would be amazing. So those would be the two that I would automatically think of off the top of my head. the Aztec Golden Idol of Fertility from Raiders of the Lost Ark as part of the Indiana Jones franchise, as well as Han Solo, Frozen and Carbonite from The Empire Strikes Back. So those are the two pieces that come to mind. Those are the ones that automatically shoot up to the top of the list. So, Stefan, thank you very much for your question, and hopefully that was a satisfactory answer. With that said, that is all the questions that we have on this particular week. So I want to thank everybody who took the time to go ahead and send those in. That's how the show comes about. You ask me anything and I answer it. That's the AMA podcast. So please continue to send in all of your questions and inquiries. And right now, I'm going to tell you how it is that you could possibly do it. You could do it via Twitter. Follow any of our different social media handles, and you can tweet questions in. So you can follow at JTW Podcast. That's the official podcast handle on Twitter of Just the Worst Podcast. So at JTW Podcast. Also at Tis Infamous. So that's the official Twitter of This Is Infamous, our giant major home, which is still in the works as we rebuild and retool the website. So at Tis Infamous, as well as at Infamous Kid. That's where you could send me on my Twitter account, where I have all my random musings and ramblings. So you follow any of those accounts, any of those handles on Twitter for all the latest news coming out of Just the Worst Podcast, This Is Infamous, or myself, and you feel free to tweet questions at any of those. Feel free to use the hashtag JTWAMA, and if it's good, you got something good to offer up and ask, then you may make the show. Over on Facebook, you can do it, facebook.com/justtheworstpodcast, facebook.com/tisinfamous, and facebook.com/BillyTheKid. Drop your questions there as well. You can send them in private messages and we'll get them. Also, we open up threads periodically throughout the week for you to lay out your questions there as well. So just keep an eye out with Facebook's crazy algorithms as far as participating and watching out for our call to action as far as submitting questions to us. All the podcasts can be found at SoundCloud.com. At SoundCloud.com/JustTheWorstPodcast. You can also download the SoundCloud app as part of your Android or Apple devices, whether you're on the phone or on the tablet. Make sure you keep all the podcasts in your pocket so you have them on the go. The SoundCloud app, make sure you download that, and you can get all the various shows and episodes as part of Just the Worst Podcast on your mobile devices. And once again, SoundCloud.com/JustTheWorst Podcast. You can find all my work on a regular basis at JoBlo.com. This Is Infamous, particularly our This Is Infamous YouTube channel, as well as right here at Just the Worst Podcast. Got a lot of good shows coming up, especially this week. Got a big wrestling podcast coming up, big Just the Worst podcast coming up, full of Oscar predictions, as well as a pretty amazing Just the Worst movie review podcast coming up later in the week. So keep an eye out for that. But the only way you're going to know they're coming is, once again, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and SoundCloud.com/JustTheWorstPodcast. I have been your host, Billy Donnelly. You can find my work once again on a regular basis at JoBlo.com. This Is Infamous, and right here at Just the Worst Podcast. This has been Just the Worst AMA Podcast, episode number 6. I'll be back next week to answer more of your intriguing, interesting, and thought-provoking questions. But until then, you have yourself a pleasant, immediate future. I'm out. Peace. Just the Worst AMA Podcast, episode number 6, has been a presentation of Just the Worst Podcast Media.